Hi everybody, welcome back to Know Your Nutrients. Today we're going to be covering magnesium. So I covered magnesium, back at the end of last year. I want to say October, November 2021. And I just thought I'd do a little bit of a recap on it because there's lots of you who weren't here around then. And magnesium one is one that keeps popping up time and time again. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's a specific source of information that a lot of you are reading, but it's one of the most commonly asked questions in terms of should I be supplementing, for example. So I just thought I'd do a bit of a recap on it as a bit of a reference video for the future. So you can come back here if you want to know about magnesium. I'm going to do really basic kind of the I guess you call it the OG format for Know Your Nutrients, where we're going to go through functions, sources, excess and deficiency, and then at the end I'm going to talk a little bit more about supplements. But let's get into it. So magnesium is one of our minerals. Therefore it's a micronutrient. So our micronutrients are those that we need less of when we compare them to a macronutrient. So a macronutrient is something like fat, carbs, or protein, where we need lots. Macronutrients, just as important, just need them in much smaller amounts. And the reasons they're important, or at least magnesium is important, is that it's important for helping to release energy from our food, so helping within metabolism of our food. Really important process. We need energy to function. Just me talking with my hands requires energy. There's some suggestions that magnesium is important in, I'm saying suggestions, there's evidence that magnesium helps with strong bones. One potential role of this is that it supports the parathyroid glands, and these produce hormones, and these hormones should support our bone health. So really important with your bones. And a couple of weeks ago on Ask the Menopause Dietitian, where I joined Nigel, we were asked a question about whether vitamin D and magnesium needed to be taken together if we were supplementing them, just because vitamin D is also really important for bone health. Whether, to get the most out of them, we should be taking them together. Nigel and I kind of concluded that it's not the end of the world if you don't take them together. You could take them together, you cannot take them together. There's no kind of, I can't think of the right word. I can never think of the right word. There's no research out there that is like in your face, you must take magnesium and vitamin D together. If we compare it to calcium and vitamin D, are two that are really good to take together just because they help with the absorption. Magnesium and vitamin D don't have that same relationship, you could say. I'm sure there is a relationship between those two because they are both important for bone health, and a lot of our nutrients will interact with each other. And that is why a supplement is so different to eating a food, because in a food, we've got all the different micronutrients and nutrients interacting with each other. We've also got the structure of that food affecting how that nutrient might be absorbed. Whereas in a supplement, chances are you've got one nutrient in there. You haven't got kind of what we call the food matrix, so the structure of the food impacting it. So it's very, very different. We've also then got a function of helping muscle and nerve function. So some very important functions, that is energy metabolism, bone health, and muscle and nerve function. So there are functions. In terms of how much magnesium we need, which is the big question, we need around 270 milligrams. Well, what does that mean? 270 milligrams is the recommendation for adult women, all the way from 19 to the end, essentially. So your needs aren't increasing as you reach menopause. They aren't decreasing when you reach menopause. They're staying the same. So if you haven't changed your diet massively and you're eating the same and you've never had a magnesium deficiency, I think it's safe to say that you'll be okay, hopefully. Obviously, things can happen and something may be affecting your magnesium levels, but I wouldn't say, there's nothing that I can think of on top of my head that's going to suddenly cause you in menopause to need much, much more magnesium. Now, there might be cases where a health professional may recommend you doses of supplements for magnesium. So your GP may recommend you take them for a certain reason. A registered nutritionist or registered associate nutritionist like me, if I've done a blood test, for example, or I haven't done a blood test, I'm reading your blood test results and I can see that you're deficient in magnesium, that's when I might recommend you magnesium. The same with a registered dietitian. Some health professionals, if they're not on a register, you've got to always check who they're registered with, because some professionals can recommend supplements in higher doses than perhaps what should be recommended. So for example, when it comes to me, if I'm ever recommending a supplement, I need to have plenty of evidence that I'm recommending that supplement for a very good reason, and it's within doses that are recommended, and I can't just give you a really high dose because, hey, you know, I've decided you need that much magnesium. So really important that if you are going to supplement with this, that you do seek advice and that you are recommended it and you're not just doing it because you've decided to. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there. Supplements are meant to come at the end, and it still is. So sources of magnesium, lots of different sources. Spinach, nuts. So we've got Brazil nuts, are quite a good source. We've got seeds such as sunflower seeds, quinoa, brown rice, wholemeal or whole grain bread, any kind of whole grain cereal, really. Also, we've got dark chocolate as well, specifically dark. So we want to be looking towards the higher percentage cocoa chocolate. So there are sources, just incorporating these in your diet. Dairy provides some as well. So lots of different ways to get magnesium in your diet. I would not worry if, I feel like most of us are getting magnesium in our diet because we're having little bits of all these foods. So, I mean, if you're sat here kind of worrying, but I'm not having any whole grain carbs, can we introduce these slowly? I know that they're not to everyone's taste. Can we try having them once a week, maybe? Maybe we have brown rice once a week or twice a week instead of white rice. Perhaps we switch our white bread for wholemeal bread. If that's too much, perhaps every other week we're doing that. Feel guilty for having a bit of chocolate in the evening, have a square of dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is much more bitter, it's richer. It's probably gonna satisfy that kind of sweet chocolatey craving you've got compared to milk chocolate where you might have a line, maybe half a bar. So little things like that can just help with the magnesium intake without even having to think about supplementing. So now we're going to move on to what happens if we have too much magnesium. Typically this happens from supplementing, and this is why it is important that you aren't just supplementing because you've decided you need to. It's always really important that you go get professional advice and professional opinion, because at the end of the day, you know, we know the research, we know the risks, and we've studied it for a very long time. So we may have come across something that perhaps if you've been Googling it, you may not come across. So just really, I can't emphasize it enough. If you're ever going to supplement anything, always seeking professional opinion. So in terms of what happens when you have too much magnesium, short-term effects are typically things like diarrhea, nausea, and cramping. And these are short-term. We have more evidence for the effects of short-term kind of overdosing on magnesium. When it comes to really like long-term effects of really high intakes, you know, the research is a bit uncertain, if I'm honest. And some places will say one thing, another will say something else. If you were to look on the NHS website, which I'd say is the best source for you to look on, they will say that it's kind of uncertain. And so, we need to take that at face value, really. One of the reasons why having too much magnesium might not be as much of an issue as other macronutrients is because the kidneys are able to remove excess magnesium through urine. So our kidneys are really important in kind of maintaining our magnesium levels. And this links really nicely to a deficiency of magnesium or low intakes of magnesium. And if we aren't having enough magnesium and therefore we need to be thinking, well, we can't think about it actually, our bodies need to start kind of changing to be able to help our magnesium levels. And one thing they can do is our kidneys can just help reduce the amount of magnesium that is lost from urine. And this is essentially what you would call magnesium homeostasis. So homeostasis is really about keeping things nice and level, nice at the nice level. I don't know if you remember in school all about kind of body temperature and homeostasis. So if your magnesium levels, you have too much of them, your levels go above kind of baseline, I guess. Your body is going to react, and in this case, to bring the magnesium down, it's going to excrete more through urine. If you go below kind of the levels of magnesium you need, your body is going to try and excrete less magnesium to kind of bring it back to baseline levels. So our body is really clever. Other things that could happen if you have a deficiency is you can get reduced appetite, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, weakness, all are typical signs. And this is what makes distinguishing different micronutrient deficiencies really tough because so many of the symptoms overlap. And again, that's another reason why you may want to go get a professional opinion if you're suffering these kind of signs, is because we need to distinguish which nutrient it is potentially that you're lacking in or having too much of. In really extreme cases of magnesium deficiency, you might get numbness, tingling in your fingers and your arms, muscle cramps, seizures, and irregular heartbeat. I mean, one of the functions of magnesium is to help with muscle and nerve function. Our heart is a muscle. So too much magnesium, can affect our muscles, and this is where things like muscle cramps can happen and your irregular heartbeat. So now we're going to move on to supplements, even though I have gone on about them. I'm just going to talk about dietary sources of magnesium. By no means can I claim I am an expert in magnesium salts that you're going to add to your bath, because that's not my area of specialty. But I know that's something that a lot of you are interested in. So if it is something that you would like to know more about, I'm sure we can get one of our other experts to come in and maybe even join me and talk a little bit more about those. So there's so many different magnesium supplements out there, and I was amazed when I looked at them and came across one place that had said there were 10 different types of magnesium supplements, which is crazy. I'm just going to talk about 5 of them if I've done my maths right. So the first one is magnesium glycinate, and that is combining magnesium with this amino acid, which is called glycine. And this is suggested to help with sleep, anxiety, and depression. However, we do need a bit more research around it to be able to kind of solidify those claims. So kind of more calming properties are suggested about magnesium glycinate. It's also proposed to be quite easily absorbed as well, which is beneficial if we're having a supplement, because supplements usually aren't as bioavailable as the magnesium in your food, for example. It's the same with other nutrients. The iron in your food is potentially more likely to be more bioavailable than your iron supplement. Our next magnesium supplement that we may come across is magnesium lactate. Again, this is easily absorbed, and it is magnesium with lactic acid, so magnesium lactate. And this is typically suggested to be quite gentle on the digestive system. So if you find that, your body usually struggles to digest or tolerate different supplements, or you have a lot of digestive issues, this might be a good one to look at in terms of it's nice and gentle on your immune system. Our next one we're going to talk about is magnesium malate. And this is magnesium with malic acid, and malic acid is quite sour usually, and it's found in things like fruit and wine. Again, it's quite gentle on your body and well absorbed. So far, our magnesiums are looking quite well absorbed, but again, that doesn't mean they're better absorbed than in your food. And I think that surprises a lot of people, because you think if it's just the nutrient in isolation, it's going to be absorbed much better. It's not always the case. We've then got magnesium citrate, which is magnesium and citric acid. So our supplements of magnesium aren't always combined with something. This is a really common magnesium supplement. It's very, very bioavailable, so it's very easily absorbed. However, this one does have a little bit of a laxative effect, and therefore is used in constipation treatment. So being a little bit cautious about this one, particularly if you are already suffering with things like diarrhea. We don't want to worsen the situation. So being aware, magnesium citrate is used for constipation treatment sometimes because it has a laxative effect. However, it is easily absorbed. And then finally, our fifth one, I believe, yes, is magnesium oxide, and this is magnesium and oxygen. This one typically isn't used, however, for a magnesium deficiency because it is poorly absorbed in your gut. So our other four that we've mentioned, nicely absorbed by our body. Magnesium oxide, not so much, but it still has benefits. It's used for kind of the short-term relief of heartburn, of indigestion and constipation. So magnesium citrate and magnesium oxide are used for constipation sometimes. And then magnesium oxide is also used for migraine prevention and treatment sometimes. There's some research that suggests supplementing with magnesium can help migraines. So lots of different magnesium supplements. They aren't all the same. And I mean, I can't sit and tell you which one is the best one. It is all about, if you're out and about looking at supplements, perhaps you need to have a look at the different types. The bottles should tell you perhaps what it's better suggested for. If you're seeing a health professional, such as a registered nutritionist, dietitian, or your GP, asking them, because they are in a position where they can provide more personalized advice than I can through a video, unfortunately. But I hope that's been a nice recap of magnesium. If anyone has any questions, do let me know. Although I'm not there live today, I can always pop onto Facebook and answer questions. I can always do a live. I can always rearrange an extra session on the website to pop in. Nigel also, I believe, has Ask the Menopause Dietitian on a Friday for the rest of August. So you could always pop along there and ask your questions. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that, and I will see you next week. Bye.